Let's talk about Azure Site Recovery. You can use Azure Site Recovery to replicate an on-premise, physical, or virtual machines running Windows or Linux. Azure Site Recovery includes support for both Hyper-V and VMware virtual machines. You can replicate data from your on-premise data center to Azure or to a secondary site. Orchestration is built in with Azure Site Recovery, which means that the management of replication, failover, and recovery is included. For example, should a virtual machine or a service fail in your data center, you can use Azure Site Recovery to fail over to the replicated resource in Azure or to a secondary site. Azure Site Recovery works with the following three scenarios. First one is Hyper-V virtual machine replication, then there is VMware virtual machine replication, and then physical Windows or Linux machines. When Virtual Machine Manager is used to manage Hyper-V virtual machines, you can use Azure Site Recovery to replicate them to Azure or to a secondary data center. If you do not use VMM to manage your virtual machines, you can use Azure Site Recovery to replicate them to Azure only. With VMware Virtual Machine Replication, with this you can perform the replication of virtual machines by VMware to a secondary site that is also running VMware. You can also replicate to Azure with this method. And the last option is where you got physical Windows and Linux machines. So now you can replicate physical machines running either Windows or Linux to a secondary site or to Azure. Let's talk about the various benefits that you're going to get with Azure Site Recovery. A migration to the cloud can result in significant business benefits that you're aware of already. And there are certain reasons to use Azure Site Recovery. First one being eliminate the need for disaster recovery sites. Your environment can be protected by automating the replication of virtual machines based on policies that you set and control. Site recovery is heterogeneous and can protect Hyper-V, VMware, and physical servers. You can reduce the infrastructure costs by using Azure as a secondary site for conducting business during outages. You can also eliminate the data center costs altogether by moving to Azure and setting up disaster recovery between Azure regions. You can pre-assess network, storage, and compute resources needed to replicate the applications from on-premise to Azure, and then you pay only for compute and storage resources needed to run the apps in Azure during outages. You can automatically replicate to Azure. You can automate the orderly recovery of services in the event of a site outage at a primary data center. You can automate the order in which the recovery of services needs to happen in the event a site outage at a primary data center occurs. You can protect complex workloads like SQL servers, SharePoint, SAP, and Oracle. You can also extend and boost the capacity, like applications can be migrated to Azure with just a few clicks, or burst to Azure temporarily when you encounter a surge in demand. It's important to do a continuous health monitoring. The site recovery will monitor the state of your protected instances continuously and remotely from Azure. So when you're replicating between two sites you control, your virtual machine data and replication remains on your networks. All communication with Azure is encrypted.